During the second semester, we talked about similarity of triangles, and we're going to continue with that same discussion with congruency. So you will find a lot of similarities between the two topics, even though the rules are slightly different. So, do you remember the additional piece of information we look for if we don't have enough information to be able to say two triangles are similar? Because in congruency, you will also find us looking for that additional information if the triangles we're given doesn't have enough information. So on your paper, why don't you list out the ones you remember and then turn the video back on when you are ready to check. So one of the first checks we look for is shared side. Sometimes two triangles are actually sharing a diagonal or a side, and that would be an extra piece of information. Sometimes they have a shared angle. With similarity, you'll definitely see this, probably not so much with congruency, but with a shared angle, you definitely have another piece of information. Probably one that you'll see a lot more with congruency is vertical angles, because as we've talked about since September, vertical angles are always congruent to each other. The fourth thing we talked about was parallel lines, and the one that will show up a lot are alternate interior angles. So think of the letter Z. If you have two lines with a transversal, and if the angles created by that Z are congruent, then the two segments have to be parallel to each other because those angles are alternates. And the last one, which is Pythagorean theorem, was the fifth thing we talked about, was similarity. And with congruence, we actually have our hypotenuse leg theorem. So the hypotenuse leg theorem should hopefully cover our Pythagorean theorem problems. But again, just be aware that there are 5 possibilities. So in the handout you've been given, I'd like you to take like the next 10 minutes to go through the problems, and let's see how many of these problems that you can figure out whether they're congruent or not, and by which reason. So in addition to finish off the congruence statement, also go ahead and list the reason, and then turn the video back on when you're ready to check your answers. So for the first two, angle O is marked with a single arc, which means angle P would be the first letter. G has the right angle, which makes R the second letter, and then D and C have the double arc. And the second triangle, it's RAC. There's no angles marked, but if I go R to A to C, I'm going along the triple to the single. So I need to go along from the triple to the single as well. So O to E to G would be the correct order for number 2. In problem 1, you have multiple ways of labeling this one. With the hypotenuse leg are marked since the triangle is a right angle. We could also say side, side, side since all 3 sides are marked. We could say side, angle, side because the angle between the sides, whether I'm using C, R, or P, are marked the same way. We have angle, side, angle. In 2 angles, we can select the angle of the side between them. It's the same. And we also have angle, angle, side. So this one here, actually, any of our rules will work. But in problem 2, the only rule that will work here is side, side, side. Again, there's no shared side, there's no shared angle, there's no vertical angles. All we have here are side lengths. No angles at all are being marked. Do not assume the triangles are isosceles, even though they look like it. But again, you can notice all the triangles, both triangles, the sides are all marked differently, which makes the triangle scaling, and also all the angles have to be different. So in problem 3, angle L and angle E are both marked with a double tick mark or arc, so they're going to be first. I and A would be second, single, and then N and R would be last because they're marked with right angles. In this problem over here, if I look at this one, it appears we have angles and angles, but this one cannot be determined. Actually, it just simply doesn't work. Because we have just angles here, so we can't say that these triangles are congruent, even though the letters do match up with angles. There are no sides. So this is an angle-angle situation, so this one doesn't work. So be careful with the as you're working through these. Sometimes they will give you the impression that they are the same, that they look the same. Angles are marked the same, so all of a sudden you're just putting in the letters here to match things up. But there are no side lines here. Going back to this one here, since all the sides are marked and all the angles are marked, it doesn't matter which rule you choose, they all will work for problem 3. All right, for this problem here, we're just trying to match up things. So triangle FGH, so F single, G right, H double, so F 8EI would be the triangle going the other direction. So FEI. Angle EFI. So again, this angle F has 3 letters, you'll notice, because there are 3 angles at F. So angle EFI and angle GFH would be the same. With angles, you can reverse the letters, so it could also say HFG. Angle G is the right angle. It gets paired up with angle E, which is also a right angle. Angle H, which is the double arc, gets paired up with angle I, double arc. FG, which is the double tick mark, is paired up with line segment EF. Try getting the habit of saying the shape. Line segment GH, which is a single tick mark, is congruent to line segment EI or IE. And line segment FH is congruent to line segment FI or IF. Make sure you're putting the line segment symbol above it, because that's an indication that we're talking about a shape. Without it means it's a distance. So we're comparing 2 shapes here. Okay. Go ahead and work on problem 8. Turn the video back on when you want to continue looking at your answers. I want you to go ahead and look at problem 8, 9, and 10, and then come back and turn the video back on. So in problem 8, again, order matters here. So since the first letter is E, then the first letter of the second triangle is H. Those are going to be the congruent angles. Line segment EF is the first 2 letters, so that means it gets paired up with the first 2 letters of the other triangle. So that's line segment HG or line segment GH. Angle EFI, F is the middle letter, so that means G has to be the middle letter. So it can be written as either angle HGI or angle IGH. Either way works. In the bottom row, line segment FI are the last 2 letters, so that means it gets paired up with line segment GI or IG, line segment IG. Angle FIE, I being the last letter, so that means the middle letter is the last letter, so that means I has to be the middle letter of the second triangle. So it can either be written as GIH or HIG. Either way works fine as long as I is the middle letter. And then line segment IE is the first and third letters, so that means the first and third letters will be the second entry. So line segment HI or line segment IH. In problem 9, this angle here and this angle here are congruent. We already told the triangles are congruent, so we don't need to worry about trying to prove that. Since this angle is 35, then that means this angle here has to be what's left of the 90, which makes it 55. So this angle 2x minus 7 has to also be 55 degrees since these are vertical angles. So if I take 2x minus 7 and set equal to 55. And then add 7 to both sides, makes that 2x will be 62. And then when you divide by 2, you get x ends up being 31. Okay. In the next problem, we're told that the two triangles are congruent. So AB, for example, its first two letters, is congruent to AD, which is the first two letters. So that means that this expression here has to equal 21. So 3 times the quantity of x minus 7 equals 21. Now this may be where we have a slight difference in solving the problem. I know a lot of you have been taught to multiply through by multiply through by 3 to get rid of the parentheses, but I know that 3 is a factor of 21. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. And if I do that, then the right side becomes 7. 21 divided by 3 is 7. And then I can add 7 to both sides to get x by itself. So x ends up being 14. So in part 2, what you're going to be doing here is looking at, again, the patterns and seeing if you have enough information. Think about those 5 things we talked about for similar triangles. Will any of those apply to any of these problems? And then if it cannot be determined, then right cannot be determined. If you go ahead and complete problems 11, 12, 13, and 14, and then come back and turn the video back on when you're ready to continue. So for this problem right here, if I go from A to B to C, it's going to go single to triple. So I want to make sure the letters are lined up correctly. So if I go from E to F to D, it goes from single to triple as well. So the markings are set up correctly, the letters are set up correctly. So these two triangles are congruent by side, side, side. There are no angles marked. Even though the triangles may look like right triangles, we're not given that information. But what we do know is that the 3 sets of triangles have a scale factor of 1 since the corresponding sides are the same length. In problem 12, we have 2 pieces of information, 2 pieces. This is our first example of having a shared side. And by marking the shared side, both triangles are now showing a pattern of side, side, side congruency. In problem 13, they're separate, so we're just kind of looking at information. They both have a single and a double, and then the angle between them is being shared by both sides in both cases. So this would be an example of side angle side as long as the letters are put in the right order. So we're going to go from angle along the single side to the unmarked angle B. So here we're going to start with angle along the single to the D. So it should be E, D, and F for ABC, and E, D, F is not what we have here. So based on the information here, not congruent. Or cannot be determined. In terms of this, I think this not congruent is a better choice here because in this information, we definitely have 2 sides. We definitely have an angle. The issue here is that the letters are just in the wrong order. So if they would switch the D and the F, then we would actually have congruency by side angle side. So it's more about that the information is incorrect in terms of the order. So it can be determined. It's just wrong order. This one here does have a shared side. And so based on that shared side, we definitely have enough information for hypotenuse leg. Again, as long as everything's in the right order. So if I go A to D to C, then angle A and B, like a line of reflection here. So B should be first, goes to D, then to C, which is the right order. So this is true by hypotenuse leg.